Carol, and welcome to your 5-minute afternoon news. Diving into further investigation of the tragic Air France Flight 447 crash in July 2009, shocking evidence has been recently found in regards to the flight's black boxes. Here to further discuss details today are my colleague Tara Midmeyer, Air France representative Caitlin Smithy, and ergonomic expert Sydney Motes.
Thanks, Mikey. Our interest in this story comes from wanting to examine the ergonomic implications of the accident, what the pilots could have done differently, and how Air France handled such a catastrophe.
The flight was en route from Rio de Janeiro to Paris when the plane began suffering from conflicting airspeeds. Co-pilots David Robert and Pierre Bonin were in charge of the controls when the plane began to stall and lose altitude, requiring the resting captain's help. The pilot's errors during the flight resulted in the plane rapidly descending 38,000 feet in just 3.5 minutes, crashing and killing all 228 passengers aboard. The following years consisted of millions of dollars spent on 3 failed searches. However, investigators finally found wreckage from the crash during their 4th search. Officials from the French Bureau of Inquiry and Analysis for Civil Aviation Safety said multiple victims were clearly visible from the wreckage pictures and stated that it could take up to a month before all bodies and debris could be removed from the crash site. Amongst the debris, almost 2 years after the crash, the memory unit or black box was finally recovered, potentially answering years of unsolved questions for what really contributed to this fatal flight. Now turning it over to Tara to analyze an animation of the flight's descent.
4 hours into the flight in an area known for turbulence and loss of communication, the plane's speed sensors iced over, causing them to malfunction and push the plane out of autopilot. Without the autopilot, the plane rolled to the right and stalled, triggering a warning. The pilots were being told that their airspeed was higher than it actually was because of the malfunctioning sensors. One pilot tried to slow their speed by pulling the nose up, but the first officer also controlling the plane was pushing the nose down to attempt to recover the stall, so the 2 pilots' controls canceled each other out. By the time the first officer realized his controls were causing the stall, it was too late. The plane didn't recover and their speed reduced too much, causing the plane to plummet into the ocean. Now we will hear from Caitlin, a representative from Air France.
On behalf of Air France, we send our deepest condolences to the families impacted by this accident. After a long 2 years, the black box was finally discovered, allowing for us to further investigate the problems that occurred on Flight 447. Since the accident, we have worked to replace all of the speed sensors for our Airbus fleet with a new, more reliable model. Air France is also dedicated to furthering the training of our pilots in order to better prepare them for situations that could arise during flight. Just 5 months after the crash, an internal review was commissioned to investigate almost all the operations at Air France to better protect our customers. We're also working with Airbus to ensure that more checks are made on the systems of our planes before they are put into use.
Human error and poor cockpit design were the major contributors to the tragedy of Air France Flight 447. A major design flaw in the cockpit was the fly-by-wire control stick, which gave very limited tactile feedback and did not relay information about changes made to the orientation of the aircraft between the 2 pilots. The only way to know what the pilot flying was doing to steer the plane was by looking directly at his hands. This design could be improved if the control stick was linked to a digital display that clearly showed the movement and orientation of the aircraft as well as adjustments made. The control stick should be designed to have some resistance to indicate that an adjustment has been made. The pilots were not provided critical information to recover the aircraft, such as the plane's angle of attack on the cockpit displays. Also, the aircraft emergency system only reported the consequences of system failure, but did not ever report the origin of the problem to the pilots. Lack of emergency training and improper crew resource management added even more chaos to the situation. The crew did not follow proper procedure to regain control of the aircraft. There was confusion about whether the plane should be directed up or down to regain the lost altitude. The pilots did not follow a clear chain of command as to whom should take control. They knew they were entering a hazardous area, and the more experienced captain should have remained in the cockpit during this time to oversee the safe passage through. Had he been present the whole time, he might have known how to handle the situation much faster than the 2 pilots did. It was later discovered that one of the pilots stated he had only slept 1 hour the night before, which raised the questions of if the pilots were adequately rested and prepared for flight.